Hello everyone, this is me Damna Bhai from student of TOEIC Institute of Technology, and today I am here to present catheter associated urinary tract infection. This presentation has been prepared by me and my friend Sujata Barakuti, and this is our outline course. Uh, Introduction, common microorganisms causing CUTI, factor contributing towards hospital-acquired and CUTI, complication of the long catheterization, prevalence rate of infectious disease in New Zealand, evidence-based measures to prevent CUTI, general measures to prevent hospital-acquired infection, infection control management, evidence-based standard and guidelines used for prevention and control in New Zealand, and contribution of IPC standard and guidelines. This is the introduction of our presentation. Catheter-related urinary tract infection (CUTI) is the most prevalent health infection, most frequently used in incontinence and in urinary obstruction, is almost invariable in all patients within 14 days of the catheterization, that improves mobility, modality and therapy cost in severely ill patients with long-term injury. Common microorganisms causing CUTI. CUTI in patients with short duration catheter is usually triggered by single microorganisms. E. coli is the maximum recurrent species isolated. Other enterobacteriaceae, Klebsiella, Celcertia, Cintrobacter, Enterobacter, Pseudomonas, Gram-positive, Cocci, Cons, Enterobacterias. This is the frequency of common pathogens, and E. coli is 32%, Enterococci is 22%, Pseudomonas is 20%, and the as epidermis is 15%. E. coli. E. coli is the bacteria which is gram-negative and broad-safe and are in spring lactose fermenter. More than 85% of UTI is caused by E. coli bacteria. They are found in the environment, food and intestine of humans and animals. Pseudomonas. Pseudomonas is a gram-negative bacteria. It is the third most common pathogen associated with catheter-associated urinary tract infection. Generally, it attacks on patients with compromised immune system. Only few species of Pseudomonas cause infection in human body. It causes CUTI through biofilm development of the exterior of indwelling catheter. It is only pathogenic when introduced into zones lacking of normal defense. Actually, Pseudomonas is a gram-negative bacteria and the third most common pathogens which cause CUTI. Generally, it attacks with immunocompromised patients like HIV infected patients, tuberculosis infected patients. Only few of Pseudomonas cause infections in human bodies. It is caused through biofilm development of exterior indwelling of catheters. It is only pathogenic that introduce lacking of normal defense. This is the factor contributing towards hospital-acquired infection and CUTI. Long duration of catheterization, previously catheter history, age and gender, previous history of diabetes, overuse of antibiotics, patients' poor hygiene practice of patients and healthcare workers, prolonged stay in hospital, person who compromise who with immunocompromised immune system. This slide demonstrates that person who is long duration of catheterization causes duration is the more factor contributing to CAUTI and previously history of catheterization. Person who used before catheter, age and gender is also causing factor of CAUTI. Age, male, previous history of diabetes, who have diabetes of who have history of diabetes, overuse of antibiotics, person who used over antibiotics, and person who have poor hygiene practice of healthcare workers, and person who stay more long in hospital, that is the factor contributing of CAUTI. Person who is immunocompromised, like TB infected patients, HIV infected patients, diabetes, etc. Complication of long-term catheterization, lower and upper CAUTI, bacteremia, renal and bladder stone formation, catheter obstruction, universal bacteriuria, and bladder cancer. Lower and upper CAUTI, bacteremia is the bacteria present in the blood, renal and bladder stone formation, catheter obstruction by prolonged use of catheter that can cause catheter obstruction, universal bacteriuria, and if a person use prolonged catheter, that can be risks of bladder cancer also. Prevalence rate of infectious disease in New Zealand. Toyohama Institute of Technology observed the prevalence rate of infection in New Zealand. It expressed the basis of acquired infection in the department of chemotherapy and ILI of 0 to 5%, 18% of cellulitis, and 2% of patients.
Hello, I am Sujata Barakoti, and because this presentation was prepared by me and my friend Jamuna, so the rest of the part I am going to explain. So here we have evidence-based measure to prevent catheter-associated urinary tract infections. In this slide, we have mentioned like overuse of indwelling urinary catheters contributed more about 15 to 20% of patients who are hospitalized underwrites to the occurrence of hospital-acquired urinary tract infection, and the period of urinary catheterization is the only important threat for emerging catheter-associated urinary tract infections. So urinary catheters are usually located for inappropriate indication, and healthcare providers are frequently unaware that their patients have catheter prominent to lengthy avoidable use. So in these slides, basically what it is saying that most of the urinary catheters contributes for about 15 to 20% of patients for causing urinary tract infection which are associated to catheter use, who are hospitalized, and these underwrites to the occurrence of hospital-acquired urinary tract infection, and the period of time or the duration is the main factor for responsible for the catheter associated urinary tract infection. Besides this, urinary catheter, they are usually located for the inappropriate indications, and what usually happens are the healthcare workers, they are totally unaware of the prolonged use of indwelling catheter, which could have been minimized. And next slide please. So the evidence based, excuse me, can you please go to the next slide, previous one. So to prevent catheter associated urinary tract infections, there are certain measures which can be used, and they are like suitable catheter use, which is one of the main reason for minimizing CUTI. Another one is aseptic insertion, and third one is use of closed drainage system. Beside this, healthcare worker education awareness and frequent in-services skill training should be provided, because directly or indirectly, healthcare worker, they have a very vital role in preventing the patients from catheter associated urinary tract infection. So education from their level is very important. They should be made aware regarding the consequences of prolonged catheter use. So various skills and training should be provided to them. Besides this, proper care of urinary catheter and appropriate removal. So that means the urinary catheter that is used to patient, that needs to be taken care of very properly, and if it is of no use, then that should be removed at time. Another one is the use of established practices such as hand hygiene. So as we all know that hand hygiene has a we can say it has a very important role from basic level to everywhere, in hospital, in a school, in our daily life. So establishment of hand hygiene, good hand hygiene practices is also very important for minimizing catheter associated urinary tract infection. So next slide please. So for hand hygiene, there are 5 steps. So the picture is showing that how a good hand hygiene practice can be done. First one is the lathering process. Second one is scrubbing. Third one is like spreading. Fourth one is washing, and the last one it is rinsing. So overall, the figure shows the 5 steps of hand hygiene practices. Next slide, please. And talking about the general measures to prevent hospital-acquired infection or hospital-acquired catheter associated urinary tract infection. So there are certain measures which have to be taken care of. So good hand hygiene practices, as I have already said, that hand washing environment, and that not only includes regarding hand but also hand washing, but also environmental cleanliness. Personal hygiene is also important. Second one is safe handling and disposal of sharp and contaminated instrument, because we know that microorganisms, they can be easily spreaded through various kind of disposable sharp and contaminated instrument. So a very safe handling and disposal of the instruments should be done. Besides this, appropriate waste handling, reprocessing of reusable instruments and equipment. So this is also very important, appropriate waste handling, reprocessing. Besides this, protective isolation for immunocompromised patient to reduce the chance of acquiring opportunistic infection. Because immunocompromised patient, because of their weakened immune system, they are more prone to diseases and infection. Protective isolation for them should be done. Another one is use of sterile gloves and gown which are safe for touching contaminated instrument or other infectious materials. So basically we will be taking care of our hand with the 5 moments of hand hygiene. After hand hygiene also we have to use sterile gloves and gowns, which is very safe for touching the contaminated instrument and other infectious diseases. It can be of infectious patient also, because in hospital the healthcare worker will not only be looking after a single patient. They will be after looking after one patient, they will be moving to the next patient. So sterile gloves and gowns should be used, and gowns should be used for only once a period. It should be reused. Besides this, wearing mask and suitable eye protection to guard mucous membrane of the eye, mouth and nose throughout the procedure. So this is also like to protect your patient, to protect yourself, and to protect the environment from the hospital acquired different infections. Wearing mask and suitable eye protection is important. Besides this, vaccination of healthcare professional is also very important. And the last one is healthy practice of antibiotics. Like it should be antibiotics should be used under the supervision of the healthcare professional. It should be sold only through the prescription, and after prescription also the dose should be completed. Next slide please. And infection prevention and control management. So what infection prevention control management does is it is exposed to the vital issues for providing the medical care of medical sector staffs against commonly occurring infections. Their main motive is to protect not only just staff, not only the medical personnel, but protecting the environment from the commonly occurring infection. And it is mentioned here medical care of the medical sectors, because they will be the mostly exposed personnel to the infections, because they are dealing with different kind of patients with different infections. Another one is infection control management also essentially safeguard the health shield. It's like a health protector against the possibility of cross infections. And this slide please. So the evidence-based standard and guidelines used for prevention and control in New Zealand are minimizing the nearby contact of the diseased people for escaping their droplet infection like coughing and sneezing. And another is the Ministry of Health from New Zealand has suggested not to split in the public places, because we know that splitting is also like we are spreading, not that is not just a split, but that can be a very major factor for causing infection, for cross contamination and everything. So use of disposable tissues and handkerchief. And we have evidence-based standard and guideline used for prevention and control internationally. So for this, WHO, that is World Health Organization, recommended for wearing mask and gloves to stop the microorganism created diseases. It has suggested to take the airborne precaution, droplet protection and contact protection. So next slide please. And the contribution of infection prevention control standard and guidelines, these guidelines provide a healthy outline to support the routine of good practices, which is very important. Besides this, it contributes in achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals associated to women and children around the world regarding their health. And the IPC standard guideline also addresses the dissemination, which is spreading, development and implementation of technical strategies regarding infection. It highlights the significance of the native adaptation. And the last one is it addresses the necessity for training of all the staff in IPC procedures. So these are all the contribution of infection prevention standard and guidelines. Next slide, please. And thank you very much. At last, I would like to thank to my friend Jamuna. We both did this work, and I hope we are able to get into each and every points. So if you have any suggestion and feedback, we are looking forward for it. Thank you very much.